Okay, so this is going to be the final stage of the retouching. I'm going to make a copy of my top layer. So I'm going to Control J. Make sure I'm in Photoshop. Control J. Alright, I'm going to call this Style. I'm going to right click the layer. I'm going to convert to Smart Object. Now I'm going to go up to Filter. I'm going to come down to Camera Raw Filter. And in Camera Raw Filter, I'm going to, on this right side, these are like our menus. I'm going to go to the one that looks circled with a little dot for the masking. So I'm going to add a radial gradient. So I'm going to click somewhere around the center of the face, click and drag out. So I create this ellipse. And then going to the mask where I see kind of like the window for the mask, I'm going to click where it says subtract and then select subject. So I'm going to subtract the subject from this radial mask. Now that I have the subject, taken out of that, I can come down to exposure. I'm going to pull that up just slightly. I don't want to overdo it, just a little bit. I can, because I have a dark background, I'm also going to increase my shadow slider and the black slider. So that way it makes the exposure slider it's going to make the effect of the exposure a little bit more. I'm going to change the shape of this. Okay, and the feathering, I'm going to increase the feathering on this gradient. I'm going to increase my exposure again. Just a tad. Again, I don't want it to be too strong because I want the contrast of the dark background against the light, hair, complexion, and outfit that is on my subject. So maybe one. So I'm kind of like doing like before and after to see how that looks. It's subtle, but I think I'm gonna reduce it more. So this is the part I know like some in class, both blocks have asked about like, do I have to do this? The answer to that is no, not necessarily. But for the assignment, you have to go in and at least make a subtle change. It doesn't have to be drastic, just like what I'm showing you on mine. But this part is to show me that you understand this last part of, styling your image. So that's with the radial gradient with the subject subtracted, and then I'm changing the exposure behind, kind of like make it look like there's a backlight on the background. But again, based on what you're photographing and the approach that you want your overall image to look like, such as mine, it's a really dark background, and I really kind of need that dark background to create that strong contrast, between the subject. So mine is very subtle. I'm going to get out of this menu by clicking on the top, the three, radial slider, or the three sliders. So I'm in the general menu. Now I'm going to go down to color grading. I'm going to click on the shadow. So what I'm going to do here is I'm clicking inside this color wheel. And adding like a cool color to the shadows. I'm going somewhere between, getting a little bit more towards the purple, kind of like a violet. So that hue is the actual color. Obviously, saturation is how much of that color. And then the luminous is kind of like the brightness. So I'm gonna make it go down a little bit, kind of like darkening it in, almost like kind of like this idea of baking in the color into the scene. So I'm going a little bit in the negative. So it's kind of making it a little dark. Okay, and now I'm going to click on my midtones. Same thing here, I'm clicking inside the color wheel. I'm moving around, trying to find orange, red. Kind of like what I took out at the very beginning, I'm kind of adding back in. So the color, the hue is 30. My saturation's up to like 37. Let's see what 40 looks like. A little bit too much. Now I'm seeing how this warm hue I'm adding to the midtones, how it's reacting with the cool shadow. I'm trying to find this whole idea about balance. If I keep at 37, the luminance, again, if I go the opposite way, increase the brightness, it kind of helps bake it in. Or if I decrease, it, I'll keep it about there. Now, to keep those two working together, I'm not going to add anything into the highlights. Highlights going to keep the color of the image. So I'm just going to now move the blending slider, see how these colors are going to blend with each other. And probably about 65. Maybe down to 60. 63 is good. All right, so now my balance is like if I move to the left, it's going to lean more towards the cool colors in the shadows. If I lean, to the right, going into the positive, it's going to lean more towards the warm colors in the midtones. So I'm just going to move this, kind of, again, this idea of rocking the slider back and forth to see how the changes, are flipping from cool to warm. One being more dominant than the other, and just flipping back and forth and seeing what looks good to my eye, and then start kind of, where my eye, what my reaction is, to the changes, I'll start leaning more towards that and, favoring, either, the cool side or the warm side. For this image, I think it's almost going to be like slightly to the cool, but near the middle. So it's going to be something, I think just that blending I'm seeing looks kind of good to my eye. So I'm going to probably maybe -5. The cool thing is, because it is a smart object, I can always come back in and change it without going through this whole process. I'm going to OK this. So again, if I ever need to go back in and say, oh no, I didn't mean, I clicked too soon, I'm just going to double click where it says Camera Raw filter, double click, it opens up Camera Raw, and maybe I don't want it leaning towards the cool, I want to go more towards the warm. And if I have now set, I'll OK that. And so the change applies, and like everything else, I'm going to change my opacity on how strong I want this to affect the overall image. So somewhere about maybe 33, like a third of it. And then turning this on and off to see before, after. So it's very subtle, but I think I'm in a good spot. It's warming up, kind of making it feel like it fills in more with the light, and the color. And I think that's it. So at this point, when you're done with your retouch, you want to make sure you're going to save a copy. Before I do that, I'm actually going to save So I saved my work file, the Photoshop file, or the TIFF file. I'm going to OK this. So it's saving my TIFF with all of the layers in it. Now once that's done, now I'm going to go up to File, down to Save a Copy. I'm going to make sure it's my name and the light pattern and which one of the retouches, if this is first one or second one. The file type I want to select is JPEG. If you had set the color space to Adobe RGB, keep that, and I'm going to tell it to embed. So that way that color information comes along with the JPEG. I'm saving it in the same folder. I'm going to click on Save. The options for this, I want to make sure I'm max, so I'm going to move that slider all the way to the right. I'm on progressive, and I want to OK that. And now I saved my JPEG version, the final copy of this retouch. Now the last thing we need to do is I'm going to pull out the layer panel. I'm going to move it right near the portrait. Make sure it's expanded so I can see all the layers. And then I want to do a screen capture. So that's the Windows Shift S. So that way I have a cursor. And I click and drag over the portrait and the layer panel. Release, so it captures that. And then for a PC, you would go up to File, New. You would go ahead and click on Create, because on the PC it captures that screen capture is saved to the clipboard. It will automatically put in the width and height for you, so you just need to click on Create, and then when you're in Create, you would just do your Command V, or Control V, I'm sorry, for PC, Control V to paste. The image gets pasted in. And then you would go up to File, down to Save a Copy. Name this, so your name, the light pattern, and then like which retouch, is it the first or second, and then we're going to add layers. So I have that, making sure I'm saving it to my computer, and then saving it in the same folder, making sure it's a JPEG, and then you would click Save. The Save option dialog box, it should have the settings from the previous file you saved, so max, progressive, and then go ahead and click Save. Again, this is just to illustrate how to do it. On a Mac, when I take a screen capture, it saves that capture as a JPEG automatically. So I did not paste into this file. This is, again, just to illustrate how to save the last part. You would want to make sure that you Control V to paste that clipping into your artboard, and then you save. So that would be it. I'm going to go ahead and close that. So you're done with the retouch. Hopefully you're able to repeat this process, and obviously for any part of it, if you don't understand, just go back to that video and play that section, so that way you get a better understanding of that stage of your retouch. All right, thank you everyone. Hope this helps and you have some great success with your retouches of your portraits. Thanks.